My name is Elisa Howansky, and I am the discussion leader for this week on insects and birds and their relationship. Um, I am covering a paper on pollution and water quality's effects on aerial insectivorous birds, um, which doesn't make a lot of sense until you know a little bit more about the life cycle of certain insects. First, we're going to talk about our authors, which are David Manning. Um, he is a professor at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and he focuses on freshwater ecology and macroinvertebrates. Our second author, spending a little bit more time on him, is Micah Sullivan. Um, he was a member of Clemson. He was a professor here of forestry and conservation. He unfortunately passed away last year in May, um, with a battle against a rapid acting neurodegenerative disorder. Um, he was very valued in our community. Um, so they have a fellowship actually at Clemson with his name, and they accept nominations every year on May 31st. So if you wanted to learn more about him, you can go onto Clemson's website. Um, Onto the paper. The main question that these researchers were trying to answer is if water quality affects aerial insectivorous birds. So how would it? That's because insectivores eat insects, and a lot of insects have a larval part of their cycle that is aquatic. So things like the mayfly shown here. Their larval stage is actually in the water, and then they become terrestrial whenever they get older. Um, a little aside, I did some macroinvertebrate work in undergrad, where we actually found Dobson fly larvae, um, which are hideous, disgusting, have a terrible bite, and are just scary looking. I don't recommend. They were in the Saluda River. That's where we found them. Um, yeah, they are unfortunately a sign of good water quality. So take with that what you will. Um, so we're briefly going to cover their hypotheses. They were basically hypothesizing that if the water quality is better, then there are more macroinvertebrates, meaning there will be more adult terrestrial insects that the birds can then feed on, and there would be more birds. So that. And consequently, then more pollution would mean less insects, meaning less birds. So how exactly did they test this? They did this with open access data. So they didn't actually go out and collect data themselves. They got a lot of their data from the EPA. I highly recommend checking out these resources. Um, they have some for birds as well, which is what they use for their bird data. You can use it to compare your data. Um, Obviously, you want to do your own field work, but this can be a great resource to see if you're on the right track. Um, and here is another paper for another resource that was actually recently published. They're looking at invasive species, and they're trying to make an open access database on invasive species globally. So very cool, very fun. I recommend reading. So back to the paper. They covered a lot of bird species, especially since they were able to with open access data. Um, so they mostly focused on aerial insectivorous birds, but they actually used four species of non-aerial insectivorous birds as a point of comparison. That's what they said. These four birds were the American goldfinch, the mourning dove, the white-breasted nuthatch, and the gray catbird. And these were chosen because their ranges are very wide across the continental United States, which is where their study area was focused on. For their aerial insectivores. They actually looked at 21 species, but they only named 11 in the paper. They have a supplementary table with all of the other ones, which I assume these are the ones that are the most significant, showed the most significant results. So these species were the olive-sided flycatcher. I mean, they spanned a lot, and these birds were chosen because their wide uh, disbursement throughout the continental United States and for the barn swallow, the world. So, yeah. So, why is this research important? So, they are wanting to look at interspecific variation. So, what species are more at risk for pollution, whether that with macroinvertebrates and birds, but specifically birds. Um, they're also looking at cross ecosystem effects, which is probably the big thing they're looking at, which is how does pollution in one ecosystem affect everything else around it, which, as we can see and can hypothesize, you'll read the paper and see what effects it actually had. Um, with pollution, there is likely to be effects across multiple ecosystems. And they also want to write this paper to spark discussion and policy on conservation plans, specifically for recognizing these cross ecosystem effects. So I wanted to wish you guys some happy reading. I can't wait for our discussions. And I hopefully this is enough to get you guys started.